It's really difficult to give a specific answer to the entire situation, but I think if we divide this, the country or the matters that they are into sections, then we may be able to indicate how each of those matters stand. There is no doubt that some progress has been made in the area of governance, democratization process. We've seen that the Human Rights Commission has been established and all its members appointed and is functional. We have witnessed the reaction of this commission to some unguarded statements made by state ministers in Brikama as to how demonstrators will be dealt with. That gives us hope that the Human Rights Commission will not be a toothless bulldog. It will certainly be performing the function that is expected of it, and to keep the executive on check, so that executive excesses will certainly be curbed. Of course, the Constitutional Review Commission is also on track. I hope that in the next few months, the Commission will present its reports to the government and at the same time publish it for the consumption of the general public. I'm not quite satisfied with the progress made or being made on the security sector reform. I was chairman of the security, the SSR, and quite frankly, I got frustrated in the way and manner the matter was being handled, and
that's when you were in
when I was in government. And it's unusual for a chairman to really write to members of the committee urging them to come to a meeting, but I had to do that at one time because I was so frustrated that the cooperation that I expected, I wasn't getting that. And there was a lot of foot dragging. And I know when I was foreign minister, I knew that when we go for the ECOWAS summit, the not direct statements, but then you can infer from statements that were being made that the authority was not happy with the way we were really approaching or handling the security sector reform. So really, that's an era, and I think it is very important that some very serious attention be given to this, so that the ECOWAS community will not believe that Gambia just wants to have ECOMIC here, and that.
Would you attribute the foot dragging, as you said, to the fact that the authorities are comfortable with ECOMIC here, and then they don't see the need for any security sector reform? Will that be part of it?
Well, I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say that is part of it, because I don't think the president thinks that way. And but I think there was we have Gambian attitude of nonchalance, like a daisical attitude towards things. I think that was basically the reason. Yeah, I don't think it's because the government felt comfortable with ECOMIC. I mean, it's just that for me, I don't think some people are not owning up, to their responsibilities.
How about the areas of transparency and accountability with the government? What is your assessment? Because a lot of people would criticize the government for not open enough, for not transparent enough, and for not even close to being accountable to the Gambian people the way things have been going so far?
Well, I think these are perceptions and of course some opinions too, and it will be difficult for me to pinpoint any specific issue on which government has not been transparent. Although I must say that when the last supplementary appropriation bill was brought to the National Assembly, I think the manner in which it was done was much to be desired. I mean, this is a government, you have need, to ask for funds to meet expenditures that were not foreseen, and yet, unincurred. You don't have to wait until 1 a.m. or thereabout, and have this matter been brought to the National Assembly. I think, I believe that in future, really, we should guard against such methods of dealing with matters. Because
how about, if I may take you back to the issue of the fleet of vehicles that were given to parliamentarians? I mean, up to today, there's not been any official, statement or official issue being made to say, okay, these vehicles were donated or were given to the Gambia or to the president by this. What we knew from this, the presidency, from the government, was that anonymous. It was given to the Gambia by anonymous.
I mean, that is certainly, I think it is regrettable, and I think this was the president's own explanation, and of course, from that it does appear to me that was certainly not something maybe donated to government of the Gambia. So I'm not sure whether I'll be able to draw a distinction between president and government as such. But then certainly such donations, I think, when given to whether to the state or to an individual, the donors, the philanthropists, I mean, should not remain anonymous. I think the donor, the identity of the donor should have been disclosed. What I find a little bit redeeming about it is that the president didn't use them personally for his own personal use. No, to my knowledge, nor did he give it out for the use of members of his family or close friends and so forth. I mean, he gave it to an institution, the National Assembly, for...
But when he first gave it to them, it was his name, it was the president's name that was there until it was changed to National Assembly.
No, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. That, even though it came in his name, he didn't use them for himself. Nor did he use it for members of his family. When he gave it to the National Assembly, and which is an institution, one of the oversight institutions in the country, gave it to them, and that is what I find a little bit redeeming about it. But otherwise, if that not had happened, I mean, I think there'll still be a lot of questions to be asked.
Right.
A lot of questions to be asked. Why did he receive it? And was it this anonymous donor? Is he in any way expecting to enter into any contractual relationship with the government of the Gambia and so forth?
Why would anybody just up
So really, I think with that one side, once there's a willingness to accept the gift, there should also be the willingness to disclose the identity of the donor.
And personally, you took a lot of criticism for that. I mean, a lot of people say at the time you were in a position to at least come and challenge the presidency and the president as to who the donor or the donor was or the donors were, but then you kept quiet, at least in public, because your party had the numerical strength in the parliament and most of the recipients were from your party?
Well, I don't think this is a number of numerical strength of the recipients, you know. I mean, whether there was only one member of another party who received it or not, you know, I think it's inconsequential, you know. I mean, it was received by virtually all the members of the National Assembly, except a few. All the members received it. So why should OUSAINOU DARBOE be criticized for it? Why aren't you saying that Hamad Ba? Why aren't you saying that Hamad Ba should be criticized? Why aren't you saying that OJ, then he was minister? Why shouldn't he have been criticized for it? Why OUSAINOU DARBOE as a person? What's the reason for that? And I think really this is the sort of prejudice that you know, OUSAINOU DARBOE has for several years been subjected to. People just have prejudice. They are prejudiced in their thinking about him. They are prejudiced, you know, in their beliefs about him. You know, for no other reason other than him being OUSAINOU DARBOE and leader of the United Democratic Party.
But can't you at least understand this particular one, because you fought all your life as a lawyer and as an opposition leader, the lack of transparency?
And that is why I said that what I found redeeming about it is that the president didn't use it for himself. He did not give it to members of his family. He gave it to a national institution.
But would it,
that national institution, you know, obviously has, I mean, the right, the power, and authority to raise questions about it on the floor of the National Assembly, and the president could then give an answer. So if really there is nothing, you know, that I find personally, you know, untoward about it, you know, why should I be criticized?
Thinking about it now, would you have done anything different, especially with regards to questioning publicly where it came from? You must understand that when you are in government, in a minister, a lot of things that you do are done behind the closed doors, you know. And if, as a minister, I want to take an issue with the president, I have to resign from government, and that's the decent thing to do. And I didn't find, at this particular issue, I didn't find anything in it that warranted or could have warranted my resignation. And then go on publicly, I mean, question or attacking the president and making inferences or suggestions that I do not have anything to support that will support them. Because the conclusions that you would want me to draw is that, you know, he must have been involved in some corrupt practices. And I do not have the evidence about that. You know, I cannot go on, I mean, on a voyage of conjecture and say this might have happened, this might have happened. I think I should be more responsible. I should not be expected to do that. I should be more responsible. Let's move on, Mr. DARBOE. So the government was formed. You were appointed foreign minister. Of course, for a long time, this is public, declared especially by the president. For a long time, you were the president's, Barrow was your protege. You were his political godfather. You were a father. He openly, publicly, and proudly called you his political father. Everything was okay. And because of that, a lot of people said this was a UDP government. Then all of a sudden, we've seen problems started arising between you and President Barrow. Where did things start getting to fall apart?
Well, see, let me just do some correction. You know, I think it was erroneous believed that that was a UDP government. After all, how many cabinet ministers did you have? You had at least 20 cabinet ministers. And out of 20, only 3 UDP ministers. PPP had two ministers. Why didn't he say that it was a UDP PPP government? If it is the number of ministers in the cabinet that impels you to conclude that this is UDP government. So I think it was erroneous, and again, that's also an indication of some prejudice against UDP. They wanted to see a lesser number of UDP ministers in the cabinet, and they couldn't have that. So the only thing they can do is accuse Barrow of forming a UDP government, which was not true.
Outside the cabinet, the ambassadorial positions, whose shot was that? Was that yours or President Barrow's?
My recommendations and appointment by the president, because he has the prerogative of appointing Gambia's representatives abroad. So I recommended, and let me say that I have absolutely no regrets in recommending the individuals that I recommended. There have been, I think you go into the question about their UDP, there have been allegations that they are UDP, and I said, a
lot of them were UDP.
And I said, look, how many of them were UDP? Kemi Senjami, of course, there is no doubt that he was UDP. Femi Peters, of course, there was no doubt that he was UDP. Yeah, of course, who else that carried the UDP flag, and but then, tell me, the gentleman in Mauritania, I don't know.
So the non-UDP members, were they also your recommendations?
They were all I said all the ambassadorial appointments were my recommendations.
Was there any recommendation you made with regards to ambassadorial appointment that the president rejected or the president didn't go by and ended up appointing somebody else, or all your recommendations were accepted? No,
there were only 2 ambassadors that I did not recommend, and that was even before I really settled in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The current High Commissioner to India, I didn't recommend her. The former ambassador to Morocco. But other than that, I recommended all the ambassadors, and the president never turned down any of my recommendations, and I'm very grateful to that.
But then that relationship started going sour gradually. Where did it all start going messy between you and the president?
You see, my relationship with the president, as far as the governmental operations were concerned, never got messy at any time. As far as implementation of government programs and government policies were concerned, never went messy at any time.
But personally, your personal relationship?
Personal relationship also never went messy. I have never had, even with my with the Ajami, I've never had a hostile personal relationship with him. So I never had any personal relationship with president that was sour. The only thing that I believe was unacceptable to me, and probably also on my pronouncement or my reaction on acceptable president, is about the youth movement. We all believed that President Barrow was part of the UDP. He left the UDP for reasons that is not all Gambians. And we also expect also that, at the end of his tenure, that he would come back to UDP. So if that is right, we saw no reason why there should be another youth movement, the UDP youth movement, that he had been working with all the years, should be the one that should be strengthened. And I did not accept the Barrow youth movement.
And you made that known?
Of course, I made a public pronouncement at the Congress. And I said that any organization that is embarking on any developmental program or to have programs for development, I do not recognize them. But the National Development Plan of the government of the Gambia will push that, will support it at every level, at all cost. But development program by Barrow Youth Movement, we will not accept it. We do not support it, and we will never support it, because I saw, and most of my colleagues, and even political observers, saw that look, this was really an organization, that is meant to supplant, the UDP youth movement, or probably, as I said, later said that this was to be a political organization in the offing, and it has now become clear. Then they said that look, the Barrow Fans Club is the political wing, and the Barrow Youth Movement is the developmental. That is what's the problem. It's a question of principles. I will not accept, whilst I'm leader of the United Democratic Party, I will not condone activity by any individual who pretends to be a member of the United Democratic Party, yet undermining United Democratic Party. I will not allow anybody to really embark on a mission that will disintegrate the United Democratic Party, and I continue to be in bed with you. That will be irresponsible of me.
This feud between UDP and Barrow and the Barrow Youth Movement also hampered development and progress in the country. How would you react to that criticism?
I think that is absolutely wrong. That is absolutely wrong. After all, the UDP was not, really, running the government. How can the UDP or my disagreement with President Barrow on the Barrow Youth Movement and his desire to have the Barrow Youth Movement and the Barrow Fans Club flourish in this country, how would that affect? Is it still affecting the country? Has anything changed since I left government? Has anything changed? So it is absolutely incorrect that what you call the feud between UDP, Barrow, and Barrow Youth Movement, hamper the progress in the country. I don't think that is correct, because when I was there, I never allowed the politics, the party politics, to affect my output, to affect my contributions in cabinet, to affect my responsibilities as far as the various institutions that we are under. We are under the vice president. I never allowed it to happen. In fact, I have always stood out to say that, look, we cannot allow politics, partisan politics, to affect the operation of government.
I still want to go around the issue of your relationship and affecting the operations of the government. If the president and the vice president, they both believe strongly in what they believe in, Barrow believe in the Barrow Youth Movement, you believe that there was no need for it, and the feud was seen publicly. Everybody could see that this wasn't the relationship that was at the beginning. Even when he was traveling, I think a few occasions he was traveling, you'll be at the airport to see him off, the handshake was completely different from what it was at the beginning. Some meetings you were sitting, you can see you have a few meters between you. It was obvious that something was wrong. How was it that didn't affect? How could that not affect the operation of the government?
Honestly, Mr. Bojang, you'll have to believe me that as far as I was concerned, it never affected me in my operation. I don't know about President Barrow, but it never. I spoke to him freely on issues that concern government, and I spoke to him very honestly too. Very honestly and very sincerely. And even on the security sector reform, my last few days, I spoke to him very sincerely, and I suggest that there were some things that should be done.
And his response, you didn't see anything that was unusual?
And he was receptive. And he was certainly receptive. So, I think, that's my belief. I think both of us agree that, look, our politics, we'll put up our politics aside when we come to government matters. I think we all agree to that. Yes. So.
And eventually he dismissed you, he terminated your service.
Absolutely.
Did you see that coming before the moment you were told officially that you were fired?
For me, the holding of a ministerial position is at the discretion of the president. So it didn't surprise me, and it shouldn't surprise me.
Why?
Because I know that he has a discretion, you know. And of course, you know, and of course, quite frankly, I personally, the comfort I would have, the comfort, you know, I was having, you know, certainly started dwindling. But, you know, I wanted to resign. When I came from Yerevan in October, when I went to the Francophonie, when I came back, I was going to resign. But the senior executive of the United Democratic Party put a lot of pressure on me that I should not resign.
Why would you have resigned? Why did you contemplate resigning at that time?
Why I contemplated resigning was that, look, you know, I wanted to be free to do the politics, to do UDP politics. I wanted to be free to do UDP politics because as a minister, yeah, you are constrained in several ways, you know, in terms of time, you know, and even in your, if I may use the word quote unquote, your ability to react or to respond to certain situations or to make certain suggestions. You are constrained, you know, by the code of conduct that binds you as a cabinet minister. So certainly I certainly wanted to resign.
And did they give you any reason officially
No.
why you were fired?
No, he never.
Did he speak to you about it, or he sent somebody?
He never. Well, he sent the Secretary General, Mr. Kamara, Mr. James Gomez, Honorable James Gomez, and Honorable, well, not Honorable, the government spokesperson to deliver the letter.
In your house?
No, in my office.
At your office?
In my office. To deliver the letter in my office.
What did the letter say?
That the president has exercised in his powers, I think under section 70 of the Constitution, decided to leave my cabinet appointment and thanked me for serving his government. And I responded that I was grateful for having been given the opportunity to serve my country.
The same Friday?
Yeah. No, well, the Monday.
Monday.
I delivered it on Monday. Yeah. And that is it.
And since then you've not had any word with President Barrow?
No, since then I've not had any word with him, and because the occasion hasn't arisen. Maybe if the occasion arises, certainly. I mean, I have nothing personal against him, and I hope also he doesn't have anything personal against me.
But by your sacking, did you feel betrayed, disappointed?
But as I said, I wanted to resign. So if I'm given, if I'm put that, so I would feel relieved. So there was no question of being betrayed. I felt relieved.
And let's look at the issue of, like a lot of people would say, morality and legality. The president, the coalition agreeing to a 3-year term for the president, and the constitution saying 5 years. The debate was always there. A lot of people were talking, people were divided, country was divided. And then you came publicly, you said anybody who wants to push, not direct quote, but something like anybody who wants to push the president to leave by the end of the 3-year term, you threatened to take legal actions against them.
Well, yes, I mean, that was a very forceful way of stating the position supported by the Constitution. That was just a forceful way of saying it. I mean, certainly, that's how I saw it, that the Constitution provides that the president is elected for a term of 5 years, and that, of course, you know, before the expiry of that term, you know, I thought that, it will not be in tune with the Constitution to force him to leave. Of course, he could resign. But then when he resigns, what happens? It was that within the contemplation of the negotiators, because I'm told that I was in there, so I should have less to say.
Is this still your opinion that President Barrow must and should not be forced to leave after serving 3 years? If he voluntarily resigns,
if he voluntarily resigns, I mean, that is, why should anybody stop him? Look, if he doesn't have to wait up to the end of the 3 years, he could resign even right now.
But if he doesn't, he should go and serve the full five-year mandate.
Well, that's what I think that what the Constitution prescribes for. That's the constitutional prescription.
But as president, don't you think moral issues are also important? If you
And
that
question should be put to the president, not to me.
When you made that statement, your party supporters months later said that was your personal opinion.
Absolutely.
And it's not the opinion of the party.
Absolutely.
What is the opinion of the party?
No, the party's opinion will be made known very soon. And in fact, it is not only my supporters of my party, but also some other individuals who are non-UDP members, who have a way of caricaturing me anyway. Then, like, look, you never voted in 2016, so you have nothing to say whether or not President Barrow should be in office for 3 years or for more than 3 years. It is we, the electors, we who voted, we are the ones who are taking him on his promise. And it is not your business, and you have absolutely no authority because you did not vote.
So is it that the party has not reached, UDP has not reached an agreement, a decision on the issue of 3 years or 5 years, or they have, and then it will be premature for you to tell me?
No, it is that the UDP has not convened a meeting to discuss 3 or 5 years.
But it will?
Of course. On an issue as important as this, it will.
But what if the party's decision differs from your initial statement, your initial pronouncement?
Well, I think President Barrow himself knows that it was part of our executive that I never go against the decision of the party. I might find it distasteful, I might disagree with it. But that decision of the party, and if I'm not comfortable with it, if I'm not happy with it, maybe the best thing to do is to resign from the party. So I don't go against the decision of the party.
What would you tell the 3 years Jotna movement that wants to quote unquote force the president out in 3 years?
No, I don't think it is time for me to say anything, because already people are saying that, you made a statement that was personal. Now I don't want to make another statement that anybody will think that, look, this is personal.
Do you regret making that statement? Would you have done it again?
Look, if I say so, then I'll be a very dishonest lawyer. If I say, look, that statement I made, is not correct, I regret it, then I'll be very dishonest, because I just stated what the law stated. And if I said that I regret saying that, you would lose respect for me.
But what would you say to criticism or suggestion, assumptions that you made that statement because you were best bedfellows with President Barrow, and
It's not a question of being best bedfellows with President Barrow. As in my view, best bedfellow with the Constitution.
And so you wouldn't mind even today telling people who wants to use that 3-year agreement by the coalition to tell them that you are violating the Constitution. If the president doesn't resign, he should go and serve the 5-year mandate.
Well, I have stated my views, and that has not changed. And then, as I've said, it will be extremely dishonest of me. And in fact, people lose respect for me if I start saying something different. And one thing that I really want to have is I don't want anybody to say, wahed.
Would you accept that that might limit your position in any future debate on this issue of 3 years or 5 years?
Well, you see, the debate, unless want to engage me personally as an individual. But you see, the party's position, as said, the party will convene, and of course, whatever position the party adopts, and I think you can defend that. I'll be able to defend that. Yeah. Whatever position the party adopts, I think I'll be able to defend that.
And a lot of people say that because of that statement and your threat to take people to court, that emboldened President Barrow to come out and then eventually say whether you like it or not, I'm here 5 years.
Well, I don't think that's really emboldened President Barrow. When was that statement made? Where did I make that statement? That was made post-September 2017. It was made post-September 2017. And in September 2017, the Barrow Youth Movement was launched. So anybody who is there reading on the political the landscape, knowing, having a little bit of experience, you could foresee what was forthcoming. So it's not a question of really emboldening him. Already, steps have been taken. After all, in December of 2017, we saw T-shirts all over celebrating the one year victory of the coalition. We saw T-shirts all over. You know, so it's not what I said emboldened him. You know, it was, for me, he was working gradually towards the realization of his objective. And of course...
And the objective is to stay on, to cling on to power?
Well, absolutely. 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 And of course...
September 2017, still you were one of the most important people, you know, around Barrow, in terms of government, not personally, but in terms of government.
Well, in terms of government, yes, I was foreign minister.
Yeah. So if you come out at that time to say that I will take anybody to court who wants to do this, then that will validate the president's quest to hang on to power.
What I'm saying is that you know, the move, because he never emboldened the move for this, you know, really, you know, happened or started, you know, even before September 2017, when the Barrow Youth Movement was formally launched at Semegajane Hall.
You have the numerical strength in the parliament, UDP. But since the beginning of this parliament, we've not seen, despite the fight, UDP's fight for more than 2 decades against dictatorship and all you wanted to put in place in terms of legislations, we've not seen a single private member bill put on the table sponsored by the UDP. What explains this?
Well, you know, the coalition government has a legislative program, and we believe that government should be given an opportunity to implement those legislative programs which will be in fulfillment of the promises made to the electorates that when you come, we are going to address the specific issues through the National Assembly. Yeah? After all, the exercise of legislative functions of National Assembly is quite important, but it's not the only function. You have other functions which the UDP National Assembly members are efficiently, you know, performing and with conscience. Yeah? But maybe it will not be right for me to tell you what some members have been telling me recently, and but then you know, there are certain issues that we think, you know, legislation should be passed, legislation should be presented on, but we believe that government should really take the lead in that. We don't want to leave it to private members. And you know, I mean, it is not because you have 15 National Assembly members, yeah, because UDP members are not the only legislators. Why you are not asking the GDC? Well, you know,
I'm interviewing you.
I agree. You interviewed me, but I think really it should be a general because for me the question it is it seems to suggest is that no, it is you who should do it. It is you who should do it. You know, that's what I'm saying. But what about GDC? What about NRP? What about DOE? You know, and so forth. But quite frankly, there are issues that we think about very seriously, and I think maybe very soon. There would have a draft bill on some aspects of some laws. But we thought that government should take the lead in that.
When next elections are held, UDP contests, is OUSAINOU DARBOE likely going to be the flag bearer of the party?
I think UDP members should be asked that question. You know, I don't select myself.
Do you still have presidential ambition?
Well, if I say I don't have presidential ambitions, I'll be deceiving. But I'm not desperate to be president. That is one thing. I'm not desperate to be president of this country.
What do you say to suggestions that you should step back, put a younger generation in front, and be there as advisor instead of yourself going forward?
Absolutely. Let the younger generations come forward and ask to be selected as the flag bearer.
Do you see yourself as a unifier in this country at a time when we are so divided as a nation based on political lines, sometimes based on regional tribal lines, because a lot of people also say, or some people say, they don't see you as a unifier, the unifying factor who's going to put the country together?
Well, again, that is the prejudiced minds. What have they found divisive about me or about my party? You see, Mr. Bojam, you have individuals who idealize other people, and those people are not able to make it on the politically in the country because OUSAINOU DARBOE is their obstacle. So they go on and demonize OUSAINOU DARBOE, that he has no ability to unify people, that he is divisive. And no one will tell you what the divisive actions or divisive statements I have made. I've always asked for the unity of this country. I have always advanced the argument that a Gambia without Jola is not a Gambia. A Gambia without Wolof is not a Gambia. It is the total, the aggregate of the ethnic groups that make the Gambia what it is. And no one can really segregate these ethnic groups. I cannot understand why anybody will say that we are not unifying. Of course, we will push our political agenda against the political agenda of others, and we do so very aggressively. And if they think that is divisive, then so be it. We do not regret that, because it's happening. Others are doing it, and yet they don't say that they are being divisive.
Will UDP form the next government?
Absolutely, yes. There's absolutely no doubt about that. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
Why are you so sure?
Because of the gains that we are making. Because of the gains we are making. Yeah? I mean,
even when the new constitution comes into play and the 51%
we have taxed ourselves to go beyond 51% on the first round. That is what we have tasked ourselves to. And that is what we are working on.
If that doesn't happen, you will need other parties.
Well, yeah, if it doesn't happen, we will need other parties, of course. But, but we are working on that so that there would be need to have another coalition government doesn't arise. It's a possibility that it can, that we may not, but we are, that is what we have to, that is what we have tasked ourselves. And that's
some say
our target.
you're causing up with the GDC and Mama Kande of late. Is that likely?
I don't know what they mean by causing up with GDC and Mama. UDP and GDC had never had a discussion of any nature that would bring the two parties together. Look, we are leaders. Should we